Hi, Denise.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you here today. This is Denise Collazo, who is authoring a new book called Thriving in the Fight, and wanted to share a little bit with folks what the book is about, her inspiration behind it. So, Denise, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about this new book?
Excellent. Thanks, Linda. I started organizing because I come from a long line of women who have faced down and stared down almost impossible odds and figured out a way to thrive, to go just beyond surviving, but thriving. And really starts with my great grandmother, Abuelita Goyita. She was in around the time of the First World War. She had 6 daughters. She was living in the mountains of Puerto Rico, and when her partner died, she was kicked off of her land, and she ended up trying to figure out how to raise 6 girls right around the time of the First World War, with no way, no natural way to make any revenue or any money. And she did it. She fed all those girls. They all grew up and had their own lives. And my grandmother had a very similar journey where she relocated from Puerto Rico to New York with 6 kids. She left a domestic abuse situation and said, enough is enough. And she moved to New York, brought her whole family. And I had the opportunity to go to Harvard. I grew up in Castroville, California. I grew up and went to public schools, and I got this letter from Harvard inviting me to apply. And I had to check and see if it was real. Is this real? I brought it to my guidance counselor. He said yes. And when I was at Harvard, I got to see the difference between where my family came from and what real wealth looks like. And that really for me was the decision point of what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I knew it was going to be about fighting for political, economic, social, and racial justice for people like my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my dad, probably your family, and the family of so many of our our brothers and sisters in the movement. So that's a little bit about why I organize, and I decided to write the book Thriving in the Fight, a survival manual for Latinas on the front lines of change, really because I had spent a lifetime, right, my entire adulthood, organizing for change in communities across the country. And I just imagined that there might be something that other people could learn from my failures and some of my successes as well. So thanks for inviting me to talk about it.
Yeah. So inspiring, Denise. Tell us a little bit about your day job and what you're doing when you're not writing books.
I serve as the Senior Advisor for External Affairs and Director of Institutional Advancement at Faith in Action. And Faith in Action National Network is the nation's largest faith-based organizing network. We organize in around 3,000 congregations of many different faith traditions. And my role is to really advance the institution of Faith in Action as an organization, to really relate better with our partners in the movement. Many of our organizations began kind of in competition with one another, but we're well beyond that, and now we're much more interested in collaborating with the rest of our partners in the movement. I love our new executive director. His orientation is like, how can we play together? And that is such a good orientation to have. So I work on our partnerships. I work to bring in more resources, bring in a different kind of resources, connect our communications with our relationships with grassroots leaders, and trying to translate that into a long-term sustainable revenue source and resources for organizing at Faith in Action, as well as our member organizations. I also do some co-conspiring with other folks in the movement about how we can team up and raise money together. So that's what I do.
That's great. Are there pieces in the book that kind of reflect some of your work at Faith in Action, and how do you think working at Faith in Action has changed your view or enhanced your view around how to thrive in the fight?
In many ways, most of the stories in the book are about my work or the work of others who have been part of Faith in Action or other organizing entities. So part of what I do in the book is tell some of my stories of success and failure, the times where I've kind of had to fall down and lick my wounds and get back up. And I was the first woman of color, the first Latina to be an organizer, have a family, and stay in the work. When you are one of those edge leaders, you end up kind of breaking ground and clearing ground for others. And it's not easy. It's not easy to be that person. So I had to create a vision for what my life would look like with having a family and being an organizer and being in this movement. That's really where some of the work around thriving, the idea of this work is so beautiful and it's so joyful and it's so exhausting. How do you figure out how to be a full person and be an organizer and be a mom and be a daughter and a sister and a friend and a neighbor, not just be an organizer? So thriving in the fight for me in the book, a lot of it comes out of the work of Faith in Action and the rest of the partners that we work with. And I really lay out 3 keys to thriving in the fight. They're 3 L's, okay, really mainly so I could remember them. But it's live into your fullest self, lead into your vision, and love past the negatives that hold you back. And so often we have a vision for something that we want in the future, but we don't lead into it. And that's a really big part of the work, is how do you lead into your vision? You have this idea of something you want to build, it hasn't been built yet. Go do it. We need your vision in this world. Living into your fullest self, there's been a lot of times in this work where I was not showing up as my best self, where I just was scraping down as deep as I possibly could just to be able to open up my computer screen or go to work. And so I've been there in that place where you're just exhausted. And I know that's not when I'm at my best. When I'm at my best is when I've, had some sunshine, maybe a massage, when I have taken time for myself to refuel my own spirit and my own self so that I have something to bring to others and that I have joy and the ability to give that out. And then, there's a lot of negative that we face every single day. We work with families who are being deported. We work with mothers who have lost their children to, racist police violence. That's traumatic. And, there's a lot of messages that we're told that we have to push up against. For example, as a Latina, we are taught by our family, our faith, our culture, and our experience to, just serve humbly from behind the scenes and expect no reward. Yet, when you do that, you are not often showing up as the best version of you. And so we have to love ourselves and the movement and the people we work with enough to move past those negative messages or the negative that exists in the world and the evil that's coming after our families. Those are the 3 keys to thriving, and a lot of it for sure is rooted in my own experience.
Really wonderful. If you had a manual like this when you were coming up in organizing, do you think you would have done anything differently, changed your outlook on anything?
Mm. You know, that question just touches my soul. I don't think I've really thought about that because as a new organizer, I was given a few books. I was given Rules for Radicals. I was given Reveille for Radicals. I was given Hardball by Christopher Matthews. And if you notice, all three of those books were written by white guys, older white guys, at least at the time. I can't even imagine what it would have been like, honestly, because I did in the early days find myself trying to figure out how to be me and do this work. And I really admire a lot of my younger sisters in the movement who are just unapologetic about who they are and are unwilling to bend to expectations. So I honestly, it's a really beautiful question, and I know I would have appreciated reading something like this as a young person. And I hope that both, you know, seasoned organizers and new organizers can, you know, find something in the book that would encourage them and be of use. In the book, there's 5 areas of leadership that I focus on. And I just chose these 5. There's many areas of our leadership that we all want to work on or that we can use some help with. But I started with integrating family and work because that was a huge challenge for me as a new mom, and trying to be perfect at work and perfect at home. It was impossible. The second area is leading from the front. So often, like I said before, as Latinas, as women of color more broadly, as women, we carry outsized responsibilities, both at home and at work. And so the default is to put your head down and get the work done. But there are so few Latinas in our movement and in leadership across the board, whether you're talking about Fortune 500 companies or organizing groups, that we don't have time to just lead from behind the scenes, even though sometimes it's more comfortable. The third is really something I find very important right now is noticing, naming, and disrupting anti-Blackness in our own cultures. As Latinos, we have our own experiences and our own realities. For me, as a light-skinned Latina, there's a certain amount of privilege that I bring, and I want to use every ounce of that privilege to center the leadership and the brilliance of my Black sisters, Afro-Latina sisters, Black women leaders in the movement. The fourth area is really just making sure that whatever you're doing, you're really clear on your purpose. When there's a really clear intersection between your purpose and what you're doing for your day job, it makes it so much easier to show up as your full self, to be creative and exercise your vision. And the last piece that I talk about in our leadership is the ability to raise money. I, over the years, have raised, you know, $50, $60 million for Faith in Action and for the movement. And many times Latinas steer clear of the fundraising roles and the roles that require, you know, that kind of access to power. And I think it's to our detriment. So that's some of what we explore in the book. And it's been really great fun just talking to people about all of these ideas and hearing their experience as well.
I love it. I love that you're able to preview so much of it before it becomes available. So tell us when it does come available. When is it out?
Well, it comes out in February, and I have a Thriving in the Fight advisory board of 12 beautiful colleagues who are helping. They're really kind of the kitchen cabinet who's helping me think about the book and think about how to get the message out there in the world. So we have set a goal of having the book debut on the New York Times bestseller list. And in order to do that, we are, you know, really encouraging people to pre-order it. And we're encouraging them to pre-order the book on any site except Amazon, because Amazon is not good for our people. And so you can pre-order it on my website, denisecollazo.com, or you can just look up thrivinginthefight.com, and that'll give you a link. But we're encouraging groups and people and book clubs to bank on it now, to bet on it now, and you won't be disappointed. You'll be happy you did it. And I think it's been really fun because we're organizers. We love numbers. We love numbers, goals, and campaigns. And so we're working to get the message out there and make sure that every person, because it's not just for organizers. If you're a nurse or a school teacher, you are also, you're facing some similar challenges on the front lines of change. And I want to make sure that that message gets to everyone who possibly can get it. We're also translating the book into Spanish as well. So
that's so wonderful. What are some other resources, Denise, that you would recommend for seasoned organizers, new organizers, people who are interested in movement work, beyond this beautiful resource that you've created?
Oh, Lord. I read a lot. So for me, it's going to be books. I'm always going to recommend books, but I thoroughly enjoyed Isabel Wilkerson's first book, Warmth of Other Suns, and now the book Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent is just, it's blowing my mind. And so I think those are really good and important resources for everyone to read. I think a lot of what we do is still oral tradition, and a lot of our learning that we've been, going through is in-person learning. There's there's not a lot of written stuff about this type of work. There's a lot that can teach you how to be how to function in many new spaces. I think, the book that Becky Bond wrote about I forget the exact title, but it's about distributive organizing and going beyond sort of the classic organizing approaches. I think that's a good resource. A group of our organizers are developing a curriculum for Black women that will be probably done by the end of the year, beginning of next year. We have a clergy training curriculum that we use to help teach organizers how to work with grassroots clergy. So those would be a few. I'm sure I'm missing others, but and then I just try to read a lot of work that's written by authors who come from different racial and ethnic groups than me to broaden my experience.
Those are great suggestions. I'll make sure to link them underneath in the description so that people can catch those and check those out.
Excellent.
But this has been so wonderful, Denise. Really appreciate the time you've taken, and we can't wait for your book to come out. And I'll leave information also in the description on how to pre-order before it comes to us in February. Are there any parting words you want to share with folks, either about your book or about the upcoming months as we look towards the rest of 2020?
I just would say one of the things that gives me the greatest hope right now is that if you were to ask me a year ago, October 2nd, 2019, what I would be doing in 2020, I could have never imagined the answer. Yet, here we are, here you are, here I am. We're still here and we're not going anywhere. And so it's been one of the most challenging years I think we could ever imagine. And I hope we'll look back on it and think, oh, that year was the worst, but it may not be. And the fact is that I believe I have so much hope in women and the leadership of Black and brown women coming together across all kinds of difference. I just think we have so much power that is still latent, that hasn't been used. I think one of the things that I just love, a quote that I love, is by Howard Thurman, who is a theologian who talks about, he was someone who informed Dr. King and others. And he says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do that. Because the world needs people who have come alive.
Beautiful. That's Denise Collazo, folks. So excited to have you talk today, and look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Thank you, Linda. It's great talking to you. Thanks for the invite.